PKK silah bırakmaz, silah bırakmaz.
The PKK's claim to be laying down its arms is simply a deception.
Benim bir oğlum daha var, o da şehit olsun. Bir torunum daha var, daha şehit olsun. Ben de şehit olmak istiyorum.
Toprağa şehit verdim, gururluyum.
The PKK has been martyring our soldiers and other citizens, making no exceptions for women and children since 1984. In the more than 80,000 terror attacks it has perpetrated to date, it has cost the lives of more than 40,000 of our citizens.
24 asker şehit oldu, 18 asker de yaralandı.
4 asker şehit oldu, 5 asker yaralandı.
PKK dün gece Çukurca'da 3 ayrı karakola aynı anda saldırdı.
Now, however, there is the claim that the PKK will lay down its arms.
Tarihi açıklama geldi. İmralı'dan PKK'ya silah bırakma çağrısı yapıldı.
Will it really lay them down? The answer to that is clear. No, the PKK will not give up its arms. The PKK is a Marxist-Leninist, Stalinist terror organization. Weapons are the reason for its existence. Without its weapons, there is no PKK. Therefore, the PKK will never disarm without changing its ideology and its mindset. This is not the first time that the idea of the PKK laying down its arms has been on the agenda. The PKK has declared numerous ceasefires before and announced that it is laying down its weapons as a tactic to gain time. None of these declarations were sincere. All the PKK's declarations of ceasefires and calls to lay down its arms have been deceptions. The PKK first declared a unilateral ceasefire on March 20th, 1993. The ceasefire decision taken on March 20th, 1993 was subsequently extended by another 2 months when that term expired. In 1993, when there was supposedly a ceasefire in force, 715 government officials and 1,479 civilians lost their lives due to terror attacks by the PKK. The PKK terror organization again declared a ceasefire on September 1st, 1998 on account of World Peace Day. The period of the supposed ceasefire in 1998 was a time when some 500 citizens were martyred. Öcalan called on the PKK to lay down its weapons from the İmralı prison island on September 1st, 1999. Many people rejoiced and thought the PKK has finally laid down its arms. In June 2004, however, the PKK resumed its armed attacks on the pretext that its demands had not been met. In truth, the PKK had never laid down its arms at all. According to official figures, the number of people martyred between 1999 and 2004, when those weapons had supposedly been laid down, was 604. The PKK terror organization declared its fifth ceasefire on October 1st, 2006, but soon abandoned it again on the pretext that military operations were still continuing. On April 13, 2009, the KCK announced that it had again decided to implement a ceasefire based on legitimate defense. Since that ceasefire was declared in 2009, it has perpetrated countless terror attacks, with 134 people being killed during this so-called ceasefire. The PKK will not lay down its arms, because the PKK is a Marxist-Leninist, Stalinist organization founded on the belief of violent revolution. Up in the mountains, PKK militants receive hours of instruction full of Lenin's words praising violence and terror. A Marxist roots himself in class struggle, not social peace. During specific times of political and economic depression, it directly depicts the class struggle as a civil war. In other words, moving toward an armed struggle between two sections of society. At such times, Marxists have to assume their place in favor of civil war. No moral accusation of civil war can be approved by any Marxist. The PKK's ideology is based on terror and anarchy using guns and bombs. Their aim is to establish a communist regime through a bloody revolution. There is therefore no question of the PKK renouncing weapons and terrorism before it achieves its goal. The PKK leaders and sympathizers openly state that they will not lay down their arms. Sabri Ok, a KCK chief in Kandil. There can be no disarmament while the reasons for our being here still apply, and that would defy the fact of our existence. There is absolutely no question of our movement considering disarming of our armed forces withdrawing elsewhere. Discussing disarming under these conditions represents disrespect for the Kurds' will. There can be no discussion of these things until our leader Öcalan is free and speaks with the guerrilla movement in person. The guerrilla will never lay down his arms. KCK Executive Council member Duran Kalkan. We regard the call for the guerrilla movement to lay down its arms as meaningless and lacking in seriousness. We are unwilling even to discuss it. The guerrilla movement will not lay down its arms.
Türkiye toplumunu yanlış bilgilendirme olmamalı. PKK silah bırakıyor. PKK silah bırakmaz. PKK silah bırakmaz. Niye bıraksın? Niye bıraksın?
Only if a general amnesty involving freedom for Öcalan is introduced will the PKK consider not disarmament but rather a ceasefire. It will not consider disarming. The guerrilla movement will not lay down its arms. In the words of KCK Executive Council co-chairman Semil Bayek, whoever thinks the guerrilla movement will abandon its resistance and lay down its arms is dreaming. Nobody should fantasize like that. Everyone must be realistic.
Silahı bırakma değil, gündemimizde olan en temel sorun yoğun bir biçimde silahlanma sorunudur. Biz şu anda daha yetkin bir biçimde silahlanma çabaları içerisindeyiz.
The PKK will not lay down its arms because the PKK has to date obtained results through force of arms, and after this it will consider obtaining further results through force of arms. Since the PKK is a force that survives by means of weapons, nobody would take it seriously without them. The PKK would lose all its strength once it laid down its arms. It is the force of arms that allows the PKK to survive. The PKK is an organization that gathers supporters through violence, intimidation, and fear. The PKK will therefore never disarm. It is completely wrong to waste time saying the PKK will renounce the use of arms in the face of all these explicit facts. Disarmament can only come through a mental change. So long as the PKK's ideology remains unchanged, all that will change is the type of weapons used. Even if the PKK laid down its old and outdated weaponry today, it would be quite easy for them to obtain the newest models from the arms markets in Iraq or Syria, or from their supporters in the region tomorrow. It is therefore very wrong to imagine that the PKK will not be able to obtain any new weaponry after it disarms and the problem will be solved. Finding weapons is no more difficult than finding a loaf of bread in the Middle East, where armed conflict is present in every corner. Indeed, finding weapons may well be easier. The USA is constantly sending arms and equipment to the PYD, the Syrian wing of the PKK. There is no difference whatsoever between sending arms to the PYD and sending them to the PKK.
Amerika'nın PYD ile görüşmesinin ardından silah yardımı geldi. Beyaz Saray havadan ulaştırdı o silahları. Amerikan Hava Kuvvetleri'ne ait 3 C-130 kargo uçağı 24 tonluk silah ve mühimmat attı havadan.
Strategies based on trusting the PKK's word are highly dangerous. No unarmed, peaceful, democratic, conciliatory, and negotiated way of settling matters has any place in the PKK's beliefs. However, the PKK does, from time to time, use these concepts as a tactic to gain time and strength and seize advantages. During that time, it completes its logistical restructuring and makes good any defects and weaknesses, finally emerging even stronger than before. Let us not forget that the objective of the PKK is to build a communist state. There is no question of it disarming so long as it maintains that ideology. The PKK will only lay down its arms when it lays down the arms in its mind. In other words, it may lay down its arms if it honestly renounces its Marxist-Leninist, Stalinist ideology by seeing the erroneous and unscientific nature of its ideology. And that can only come about through knowledge, ideas, and education, not through the armed struggle it has become so familiar with over the years.